What did you make of the scenes today?
As Mark was saying there, it's very much unprecedented. And speaking to some of my United friends, I asked them the question, did you want to be there and be part of that protest? And most of them were saying, well, no, not really. And I think for as much as, we can talk about will they get public sympathy, I think they believe this is an issue for themselves. But whether or not this causes a civil war amongst, say, United fans in terms of the ones who think that's the right thing to do and those who don't, we'll have to see in time. But it was crazy to see. And for the Premier League itself, as Mark said, that is, you could argue, that is the biggest game in the Premier League every single season. And for it to not go ahead because of the protest, and don't get me wrong, I'm pro-protesting, but I think for what happened today, it's the type of thing which you hope you'll never see again. But the point of the protest has happened, and I think their voices will be heard because people can't escape it. I think if they're outside the stadium, it could maybe go away, but the fact the game's been cancelled because of it, I think it's huge news, and ultimately I think the fallout from it is going to be very, very interesting going forward because, as I say, I don't know what the consensus is amongst Manchester United fans, whether they're happy with this or they're embarrassed. And if they're embarrassed, I think they're going to speak up. What could the fallout be, Gab?
Well, it's interesting, right? We're all sitting here judging what will the mood be, what the zeitgeist is. There was a statement recently from the mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, who, obviously that's his police out there, and he obviously condemned the violence and the trespassing, but he also says the focus has to be on the people at the top of the game. The focus has to remain on owners like the Glazer. I think there's the conversation, I think, has reached a point where our attitudes towards direct action, peaceful protests, go to the Lowry, 200 fans outside stopping the bus from leaving. I think people are a little more tolerant and more open to direct action, also because of what went on last summer, in the US and elsewhere over obviously much different issues. But there is a real sense, a real impetus that, the time for something to change in terms of regulation and whatnot is now. Because, you don't have to be a United fan to look at, and I'm talking specifically about the Glazers, but as well the Super League. You don't have to be a United fan to realize that what they did and what they have done is wrong from the perspective of sport, as most people understand it. Where you load up, you borrow a bunch of money to buy a club, then you put that debt onto the club, so you're home free. The club, which hadn't had debt since 1931, you take out, as Mark told us, 70, 80 million out of the club every year, part of it going to service that debt, which you put on to buy the club, part of it in dividends and fees to you. And then on top of that, add insult to injury, you're talking about a club that since 2013, all they've won is a Europa League and an FA Cup. And they might win another Europa League this year. Woohoo. So obviously this runs counter to, I think, people's accepted wisdom of football. People are okay with owners making money off a club if the club is successful, if money gets reinvested in the club, and then it appreciates in value, and then you sell it, and you've made yourself a bundle. People are fine with that. But these circumstances, I think people feel that they're taken for a ride, and it is shades of 2010 and the green and gold, but I think the general mood is different. And there's no Sir Alex Ferguson there either to kind of, nobody wants to go and ruin his final years of the club. Fine. But he's not there. So I think the mood, from what I can tell from here, is a bit different.
What happens next, Mark?
Well, first of all, we have to find out when this game's going to get played because it's, I've only got 2 or 3 weeks left of the season, so that is a big game to play and there's not a lot of gap in the calendar to have it. But in terms of the bigger picture with the Glazers, I just don't see them moving. And I think the problem with the Glazers is that when they bought the club in 2005, they probably felt that they could run out this business plan and get away with it because they had Sir Alex Ferguson in charge and they kept winning for a while. But what's happened at Man City has completely changed the game. 2008 comes along, Sheikh Mansour comes in, and while the Glazers have taken out over £1 billion in terms of debt payments, dividends, Sheikh Mansour's put £1 billion in and more. So the Man United fans, not only are they angry with their own owners for doing what they've done and turning a once, freestanding profitable club into a debt-laden club, they've got their big rivals across the city who, prior to 2008, were derided as a joke club by Man United, who have now become the most successful club in England. Their owner puts money in, they buy the best players, they improve the stadium, everything that Man United fans want their club to be, and that the club can afford to be because the club generates enough money of its own, isn't happening because the owners are taking money out. So You know, I was at a game at Old Trafford 2 years ago, City in the Derby game, and I think City won to basically win the league. And it was raining outside, and the roof was leaking at Old Trafford. And that was a metaphor for how the Glazers have run Man United. The roof was leaking at Old Trafford as they were playing Man City, as Man City went to win another league title. And it's because the Glazers are taking money out and not putting it in, at the same time as Sheikh Mansour is putting lots of money in. You know, people might question the motives of Abu Dhabi and Sheikh Mansour, and it's a valid question to ask. But in terms of the football side of it, the Glazers are taking money out, Sheikh Mansour's putting money in, and the Man United fans are sick of it. And that is the issue. They're absolutely sick of the way their club is being run. It's a hugely profitable club, makes lots of money, but the club is still failing because the money is either being misinvested or mismanaged. And the Glazers have just turned English football's biggest and most successful club into a club that doesn't win anything anymore.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.